Our topic is gender equity, and it's to be presented or taught by Andy Stringfellow, and I'm Cheryl Brown. Okay.
Just to start out, what is equity? What are we talking about when we talk about gender equity? Equal rights. Under what? Okay, equity is fair treatment. All right. What's equality? It's a state of being equal. It's right there on your paper. Good job. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, equity is what? Fair and impartial. Okay. What does it mean? So there it is there. Okay. And when we're talking about equity, the federal law that governs it is called Title IX. And under Title IX, it states that no person in the United States, on the basis of the sex, are to be excluded from participation in, by denied benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under any educational program that is being funded by federal assistance. Okay?
She tried to memorize that. She did a great job.
Okay, so we do have some exemptions, okay? Those exemptions, we're going to just tap.
Wait. Oh.
Is that?
No. All right.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
Since we had a link.
There's a website there, but that's okay. Because
okay. Here. Okay. Because there are okay.
It's a fairly long list of and quite a bit of detail. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, but there's definitely some things in there that you need to know. For example, when this comes up, you'll see it. Religious organizations. There's certain aspects that go on with in religious organizations that are not subjected to Title IX. It's not popping up. It's okay.
Okay. So
for example, I can't think of a good example right now.
Roman Catholic Church.
The Roman Catholic Church. Okay. They don't receive any federal money, but just as an example of how there's some religious tenets that are exempt from Title IX, you're never going to see a woman as a priest. It's just not going to happen. That doesn't fall under Title IX, but there are certain things, other aspects of religion that get tied into some educational programs, and if it's part of a religious tenet, then Title IX does not apply.
Also, educational institutions. Training individuals for like military service or merchant Marines.
There's also certain educational institutions that have a continuing history, like an all-boys school or an all-girls school. They're exempt from Title IX as well. Boys and girls organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Fraternities,
sororities, things like that. There's something came up here just recently in the news. There was a certain father-son or mother-daughter events are exempt. There was a father-daughter dance that was going on, and a girl wanted to go, but her father had died, and the mother was upset, and she wanted to go with her, and the school said no. So what ended up happening was it was so close to the dance taking place, they went ahead and had the dance, but they said they were going to change the name of it for next year and allow people to bring who they wanted. Okay, but father's daughter, mother daughter, those are like traditional kind of things. They let those go. And can you guys think of anything else There's one that I never thought of that came up when I was doing this research. But what's that? No. What about a chorus, a professional singing group that required, because of the sound they wanted, 60% men and 40% female? If that's what they need, then that's what they're going to have. Choruses and things like that are exempt just because of the nature of what it is that they do.
Okay, there are 3 elements or jurisdiction of Title IX. One is gender discrimination. The other is educational programs. And then the other is federal funds. So any school under federal fund, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, college level, these 3 elements are there for the Title IX jurisdiction. Also, we have what does not apply is the racial discrimination, gender discrimination in non-educational programs, and also schools that receive no federal funds. Okay? And it tells us that the discrimination in educational programs that do receive that federal fund create a situation referred to disparate treatment or treatment of an individual that is less favored than others, and this is a violation of Title IX.
What we're going to go over now is some history. I went back like 150 years, okay, and I just wanted to illustrate a few things. And the point I want to make by going this far back is this country's been working on this for a long, long time, trying to get it right. And still today, still haven't got it right. There's still things going on that people are still trying to make it the way they want it rather than the way that it should be. All right? So if we go all the way back to 1868, who can tell me what happened just prior to 1868? You know, this little history. The end of the Civil War. All right? Prompted our government to pass the 14th Amendment, which requires all states to provide equal protection under the law for all of its people in its jurisdiction. Okay? The Equal Protection Clause, which is the most important part of the 14th Amendment, states that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protection under the law. It applies to the states. The 14th Amendment applies to the states. All right? The Fifth Amendment is what is covers the federal government. Okay? That's the due process. Moving right along all the way through there, we got all the way up in 1964 to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay? It did not address gender. So in 1967, President Johnson signed an executive order that stated that any organization that is receiving federal money under contract can no longer use sex as sex discrimination in its hiring and employment practices. Check my notes here real quick. All right, go ahead. There were 2 representatives. One of his last name was Mink, and the other one was Green. In 1970, they drafted an early version of Title IX, and in that version, you can go ahead and do the next slide. In that version, they did not specifically talk about athletics. Okay? They gave that draft to Senator Birch Bay, and he introduced Title IX on the Senate floor by the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act from 1965. They came up again. They were going to reauthorize it. So he slid this in as an amendment. And on June 23rd, 1972, President Nixon signed it into law. So now, Title IX is now on the books, 1972. Okay? Go ahead. In 1974, Senator John Tower introduced a law, the Tower Amendment, which exempted money-making sports. The Tower Amendment was rejected and replaced with the Javits Amendment. The Javits Amendment stated that HEW, which is the Health and Education and Welfare Department, they needed to have reasonable provisions considering the nature of particular sports. What do you think that means?
Like if it's a contact sport or what it may be with the addiction sport, how rough the sport may be, you have to
It's going to boil down to very good. It's going to boil down to they're going to have to look at it all at an individual basis. There's not going to be any broad generalization thing going on here. Everything's going to have to be looked at very closely and determine whether or not individually if there's an issue. Okay? The summer of 1975, the final regulations were issued. That's 3 years after it passed. It took them 3 years to write the regulations and get them in the book. And universities receiving federal money were given 3 years to comply. All right, so it's passed in 72. Regulations came out in 75. They have until 78 to be in compliance. All right. The NCAA filed a suit claiming implementation of Title IX was illegal. All right. A new Tower Amendment was introduced, and it did not pass.
I'm sorry.
And in 1979, the interpretation of the regulations was implemented. Okay, they came up with a three-prong test. The three-prong test is what the schools are going to use when they're looking at whether or not they are in compliance. Okay, now the compliance, when we talk about Title IX, understand that very few institutions out there are in compliance, but they're striving to be in compliance. Okay, you have to. That's where the three-prong test comes in. Providing athletic participation opportunities that are substantially proportionate to student enrollment. Student enrollment, okay? That's the student body. So if you're at 49% female and 51% male, in theory, you should be 49% of your athletic opportunities should be for women. Right? Demonstrating continued expansion of opportunities for the underrepresented sex. When we talk about underrepresented sex right now, we're almost exclusively talking about women. All right? That's just because that's the situation that we're in.
And it's historically said that the female sex are the ones that are the underrepresented sex, so historically.
And the third part of it is accommodating the interest and abilities of the underrepresented sex. So it's not going to be enough for you to create a female wrestling team so that you say you have another female opportunity, but that's not something that any of the females are interested in doing. Work. All right? The three-prong test is designed to guarantee equal opportunity. I want you to remember the word opportunity. We're going to cover more than 3 prongs later on.
So in 1976, the NCAA filed a lawsuit that challenged the Title IX athletic regulation. In January of 1997, I'm sorry, 1977, the bill to remove the athletics Title IX, it died. And so came the case of Grove City versus Bell, 1984. And this case here,
you got to remember, Grove City College versus Bell was what brought the schools receiving grant money to the forefront.
So, in essence, what happens is students were getting federal fund money, say Pell Grant, but this particular case at the time, the school's athletic program and physical education program were not covered under Title IX. So a student at the time that was receiving the money, as long as they were in a biology class or whatever like that, they had the money, and so they could go over to, and it didn't affect the school because of the athletics and the physical education program was not covered under Title IX at this time.
Also, in a hypothetical situation, Grove City College, let's say that all of its students were paying their own way, right? And they weren't receiving, the school was not receiving any federal money at all. Here comes along this new freshman. All he wants to do is be an English student, wants to study English, not interested in sports. He's not interested in playing. He's not interested in watching. Has nothing to do with it. But he receives a Pell Grant. He enrolls. They accept his money. The argument now is the school receives federal money. Even though it was indirect. They didn't receive any direct money. They were receiving money indirectly. Okay? This went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, they're fine. They can do that. No problem. So immediately, suddenly all these schools where the athletic programs weren't receiving direct funds, which most of them don't, they were exempt from Title IX for the whole country from 1984 until 1988. Okay, the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987 passed in '88. This basically, it passed. They put it out to the president. The president vetoed it. President Reagan actually vetoed this bill. Okay, not because he wasn't interested in equality or equity. I got it written down exactly what he said. Reagan believed that this would impose too many regulations on churches, private sector, and local and state governments. It went back to Congress, and they overrode the veto. Now, if any of you remember what your civics classes, overriding a veto, it's pretty rare. It doesn't happen very often. But this was so important that this made it to the point to where the Congress, bipartisan Congress, decided, hey, this is important. We're going to make it law. All right. So then in 1988, by them passing this, now if a student receives federal grant money and they pay their tuition at that school, the entire institution, all right, the whole thing is now under jurisdiction Title IX. So they have to comply at this point. Go ahead.
Sorry. And that brings us to one of our cases, Cohen versus Brown University. In the spring of 1991, Brown announced that it would be dropping 4 of the sports due to financial problems. So they were going to make some cuts. And this really brought the focus to the money spent on men's sports compared to women's sports. So they decided in the First Circuit Court, well, first let's go back. Women's volleyball and gymnastics and men's water polo and men's golf were going to be cut. And before the cuts, women had 36.7% of athletic opportunities, and the men had 60.3%. So the dollars and cents came to be such a big margin in between there that it was a violation of Title IX.
They cut almost over $62,000 were saved by cutting women's sports, and just under $16,000 was saved by men's sports.
A big margin there. So Cohen versus Brown was decided.
Well, the student body of the school is 52% men and 48% women. So you'd think that 48% of the funding should have been going to the women's, but 52 to the men's. But if you look at the disparity, 63,000 or 62,000 compared to 16, that's kind of out of whack. So by them eliminating the sports, trying to save that money, they put themselves in a bad situation.
So that put them in the violation of Title IX. And so the U.S. District Court of Rhode Island granted a preliminary injunction on the university to reinstate the women's sports pending outcome of full trial in merits in 1992. It was decided in the First Circuit Court of Appeals. Does that have any meaning to us in the 11th Circuit Court? Should we consider the implications?
It happened in the First Circuit Court, which is up there like Rhode Island, Connecticut up there. It doesn't have anything to do with us down here in the 11th Circuit Court, right? Okay. Well, what should we think about that? What should we learn from it? There's still parts of that we need to pay attention to because we might be faced with it one day. Something to think about. If you're involved in a situation where you have to cut some sports, or you have to add some sports, you can't just think about the team. Just think about the people. You have to think about the money. I mean, this whole thing is very complicated, and there's a lot of stuff that the schools have to do to try to be in compliance.
Okay. They had 120 days to get in compliance with it. And then in 1996, the university appealed to the Courts of Appeals, First Circuit. It was affirmed for the plaintiff. Then in 97, the U.S. Supreme Court petitioned for the writ of certiorari, and it was denied. Certiorari. I'm sorry. Certiorari.
I've been trying to say that for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Brings us to Jackson versus Birmingham, our next case. Public school teacher was hired as a PE teacher, and he was going to be the girls' basketball coach. When he started coaching, he discovered that there was some inequity existing in the funding and access to the equipment and the facility. So he complained to his boss. almost immediately he started to get bad reviews, bad evaluations. And eventually he was removed from his coaching position. By being removed from the coaching position, he no longer received supplemental pay. So that negatively affected him. He filed a complaint on behalf of the girls through Title IX for discrimination, which, he had if what he said was true, then yeah, he had a case. All right. He also filed a retaliation suit, and this is important, against the school through Title IX. The district court threw it out. So he appealed to the circuit court, and they threw it out because they said that you didn't file it right. What retaliation is not covered under Title IX, it's covered under Title VII. He didn't like his answer, so he went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, it's Title IX. Simply because the original complaint came from a Title IX, and the retaliation was due to a Title IX complaint. Therefore, that retaliation is covered under Title IX. Okay? How does that impact us as PE teachers? Have any of you ever been involved in a retaliation suit? All right. I've been on the outskirts of stuff, and they get pretty ugly. Okay? And not teaching, though, in other areas. About the only thing I could say is take good notes, CYA, and make absolutely sure that what your involvement is, be as upfront, as truthful as you can. Okay, but you have to protect yourself. Okay, retaliation is a big deal. It's covered under Title VII, but the report said if it comes from a Title IX case, then it's covered under Title IX. All right. This one right here doesn't have anything to do directly with PE, but I found it interesting when I was doing the research. 8th grade girl filed a Title IX sex discrimination suit against her junior high school because they decided they were going to segregate boys and girls all day long in every class. All right? And girls are going to be taught good character, and boys are going to be taught how to be heroic and how to be men. All right? It didn't go anywhere. The people who came up with this idea, all right, and this is another example of going all the way back to 1868. Still today, you've got people who are thinking that this is okay. I mean, think about that for a second. Yes. This was, I think, 1996. It was a public school. I mean, they weren't even allowed to eat lunch together. They separated, and once somebody called them on it, they backed off. So it never made it past the case because it was settled out of court, and they desegregated, and everything was fine, as far as I know.
Okay, the next case is more up-to-date case for us, and it happened in 2009. B. Digger, Quinnipiac University. The university decided to eliminate the women's volleyball team, and also the men's golf, and then the outdoor track and field. And then they decided they wanted to create a competitive cheerleading squad in place of those cuts there. And so 5 of the volleyball players decided they was going to file a Title IX violation against the university because it was not equal varsity athletic participation in the opportunities for them there. In the case, the plaintiffs filed for injunction preventing the university from ending that volleyball team, and permanent injunctive relief was granted by the district court. August 2012, the federal appeals court ruled that competitive cheerleader is not a sport. Okay, so
now, this is the Second Circuit Court. That's also up there in the Northeast somewhere.
So,
but their decision as cheerleaders not a sport doesn't apply to us. It's not anywhere in our jurisdiction, right? But cheerleading's a big deal down south, right?
okay.
So, you guys think cheerleading's a sport? Why not? But is it a sport? I mean, do you think competitive cheerleading is a sport? It's what? Who?
It's not a sport.
Okay. But that's what they say. What do you say?
You will ever cover, and so like they'll eat out tape faster than basketball, football, anything. Was that the case of being?
I don't know yet. That was the last ruling on that was this past August.
2012.
2.5 months ago. So, I mean, it might go to the Supreme Court. And if it does, then it's going to have national implications. My opinion on that, which I say let them compete. Do it. Why not? It's not going to hurt anybody.
But I guess when it becomes an issue, whether or not it's considered in that Title IX,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I think it should be.
and I'm going to make a point on that later on when we get to the lawsuits.
Okay, so,
All right, so what does all that mean? Cheryl's going to tell you what this means.
all right, there's 13 components, okay, that exist to form the focus of the Title IX review. So in a sports program, gender equity requires that equal opportunity, athletic opportunities for the male and the female for these specific areas. And as high school coaches and athletic training, you probably get a chance to see some of this because all that is included in there. So your athletic financial assistance, which are your coaches, the pay, the accommodation of interests and abilities pertains to your players, well, your students, your athletes and stuff and all. For yes, ma'am.
I wanted you to think about this a little bit differently.
Okay.
And that is, if somebody were coming in to look at our institute opportunity, that would be something that they would look at.
All right.
Okay, now go ahead.
Okay. And then in a little bit, I'm going to give you a handout that I'm going to give you a blank one to look at, and then I'm going to give you one that's filled out that's going to show you every little detail of these 13 things that I got from a high school athletic director that was the gender equity coordinator, okay? And then you can see the numbers of each one, how it's filled in, a survey of male, female, intramural sports, scholastic sports, and all the detailed numbers that are in there. And it'll probably let you get a better understanding of like it did me when I looked at it. But equipment and supplies for basketballs for the girls as well as the boys.
The field. There's a softball field
Yeah,
just as nice.
You know, baseball fields tends to look a little bit better than softball fields, that kind of thing.
It's an issue, isn't it?
Supplies. Also, scheduling of games and practice times. You know, some schools, they have to share the gym. The guys might get a longer practice time than the girls. Let me stop saying because I heard that written down.
Travel time, per diem, tutors, the coaches. What kind of coaches do you have? Are they experienced or are they inexperienced? Can you afford better coaches? Did you hire a great coach for the the boys basketball team and an okay coach for the girls basketball team when you had somebody else that you could have brought in? All those become issues. Locker room and practice and competitive facilities, the medical training facilities, housing and dining. These are all things that need to be looked at. Now, when we get to things like accommodation of interest and abilities, if we have the opportunities for more females to participate and we just don't have enough females at the institution who want to participate, the last one here says recruitment. Are we spending as much time and effort recruiting women as much as we are men?
And, of course, we know we can't do
There's
it in high school.
not very many places you can run and hide from on this one. Go ahead.
Publicity and the support services. Publicity, once you see this form, you see, it's a form of advertising this stuff, too. It has to be made available for the underrepresented sex to say, okay, this is available for the school and all. And I have like a survey that has to go with that report that has to be turned in each year. Your support services, and as Andy said, the recruitment of student athletes.
Which brings us to benefits and dollars. When we talk about dollars, we're talking almost exclusively, about the athletic financial assistance. All of the other 12 points boil down to benefits. Remember I talked about good coaches versus bad coaches, or experience versus inexperience. That's part of it. The opportunities, again, that word keeps coming up, opportunity to participate. All right, so first one, athletic, financial aid, dollars, everything else is benefits. Okay, again, we strive for equity. Okay, we strive to be compliant, but after 40 years of this law being in place, it's still not there yet. All right, which brings us back to the three-prong test. One of the first things on there was the accommodation of interest and abilities. If it's for the underrepresented sex, which is almost always females, this is the key point right here. You must count participants, not teams. Okay, so if you got a football team, I mean, how many people you dress out in football? 50, 60 for a home game, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right there, that's like 3 basketball teams, field hockey, volleyball, swimming for women right there. Okay, so but if you have men's basketball as well, and you add baseball to that, and you have wrestling, I mean, the numbers become increasingly difficult. Okay, and people blame football, but it's really not football's fault. Okay, it's the institution's job. It's it's the requirement of the institution to provide these opportunities. Okay, they have to actively be trying to provide more opportunities to the underrepresented sex. And like I said, it's almost always females. Some institutions, unfortunately, have had to eliminate some men's sports to get those female numbers up. It happens. But yes.
Is it legal for like an athletic director to tell like a men's basketball coach you can only have 12 guys on this team?
I think that would have to be between the athletic department and the coach. I know that the NCAA has limits of how many people you can dress for a game, but I don't know if you're limited to the number of people you can have. Because, I mean, I played soccer here 25 years ago, and I was a walk-on. So, I mean, I got a partial scholarship. It was a little bit, but, I mean, it wasn't much. But I don't know of any of the other players that were in my same situation. But, I mean, we had like 25 people on the team. That was big for a soccer team. Yes?
Now you say that NCAA has rules for how many people you can dress for a game. So now, are these rules is it for who's dressing for the game, or is it for who's on the team? Does that make sense? So who everybody is practicing and playing, or is it just for how many people you dress and play the game?
Next slide.
Because we're gonna touch on that too. We have
All right, proportionality. This is also part of the three-prong test. Institution has to work to increase female or decrease male athletic participation, so the percentage of female athletes is the same or close to the percentage of this enrolled in the institution. Okay.
based off the comparison of the enrollment of the sex
I don't
in
remember
the
putting that
school. And once I hand out that sheet, you're going to see it's a certain percentage of the females. We hear the percentage of, like he was saying, the 49% to the 51% of males to females here on this form. When you get it, you'll see that it has to be put in there, and it has to be close enough into percentage of the enrollment in the school. Okay?
Since you're never going to get to 100% perfect compliance, they've created a little bit of wiggle room. So if you got 49% of your student body is female, if you can come in within 3 percentage points for your proportionality, it's probably going to be okay. Okay, as long as you can show that you're still working towards that, and that you have a history of working towards that. They know you're never going to get there perfectly, but you got to get close. And within 3 percentage points, you're usually going to be okay. If you're way out of whack, you know, down like in the 30s, then there's a big problem.
One of the things that we should be aware of, too, institutions typically not people and
Yeah.
especially to much higher levels. That's not how you get compliance.
You also run into the situation, you know, if you have to have more women playing, what you said about decreasing the number of players. Well, let's say you need, like, you're going to add another 5 positions or 5 scholarships to the basketball team, but you can only dress out 12. Well, then you got people who are on scholarship who aren't playing at all. So, I mean, that's so, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to take into consideration. Expansion of opportunities. What was your question earlier? Because I think I'm here.
Well, the question was where you're saying that it's kind of what she said. You can't just expand the number recommendations. But my question was, okay, so say you have a girls' soccer team that has 25 girls on it, but you're only allowed to dress 12 of them. So in the percentages that you bring up, is it the 12 that's counted, or is it the 25 that's counted?
Who is receiving any kind of financial assistance?
So that's what's counted, is who's getting the financial assistance?
Right, because if you got people who are playing but they're not receiving any assistance, how do you count them? They're not going to count for the females because they're not receiving anything. They're not going to count against them because they're female. So they're not. You have to show that the financial aid is being presented and being offered to them.
So walk-ons don't count, even if the walk-ons playing, it doesn't count.
Not necessarily. We're talking. It falls into the benefits part, all right. But the money. It's sad to say, but money is always the big deal. All right, it always seems to be about money. Everything I read was about money, money, money. Okay, and it all starts with the money, and even all the benefits, equipment, travel, tutoring, it all boils down to money, money spent.
Except that there's really big exceptions to that. The only time they look around really just after.
Well, I mean, you can add new sports. You can add new teams at different levels, and you can add opportunities to existing teams, like adding more positions. But, like you said, you know, you're dealing with inequity, so it's going to be hard to get to it. So that's why they allow you to show a history, you know, of trying to get there. You have to show a historical expansion of opportunity.
Okay, so then it brings us to the enforcement of Title IX. You have your in-house complaint, which anyone, regardless of the affiliation with the program or the school, can make that complaint. The package that I'll give you, or should give you a little sample of what a complaint is through the Title I officer that's usually in the school, and they try to make sure they, according to what we have, you have to have one in the school. It's required. And usually somebody that's in there, your athletic director, that's going to be on here it has your officer. In some of the reading we have, it has your sports equity coordinator. And you have one at the school level, the district level, and the state level. Then your next complaint enforcement of Title IX would be the OCR, which is the Office of Civil Rights. I have a little sheet too that you can make a complaint to them. And it's charged with administrative enforcement of the Title IX. So it goes a little bit. If it's not taken care of in the in-house complaint, which according to what we've read and researched, that it should be able to be stopped there on the in-house complaint. It shouldn't get to there. But if by chance it does and you're not satisfied with that, then the office, you are able to file to the OCR. And that is anyone with or without legal standing that has a stake in the outcome of the file of that report to the Office of Civil Rights. And it usually takes a long time to research conclusions, and it may or not have been effective in increasing the equity of a victim, given the outcome that the victim might wish.
The last part is the lawsuit. If your in-house complaint didn't work, you went to OCR, and they refer to the DOJ, and you're still not satisfied, you can file a lawsuit. Up until 1992, that really wasn't something people liked to do because it was expensive and it typically yielded no money. There was usually not anything anybody could do about it. On February 26, 1992, U.S. Supreme Court ruled unanimously that if you file a Title IX complaint, you can sue for compensatory damages. All right, so after 1990, after that date, suddenly now you can sue for compensatory and punitive damages if you were involved in if you filed the complaint or the complaint was discriminatory on you, things like that. Now you can sue and you can get money. All right, but now you're talking about another lawsuit. Now, the thing about a lawsuit is it's gone this far. It's been going on quite some time. All right, some things you need to consider if you get this far is if you turn all this over to the lawyers and the courts and the jury, it still may not have the outcome you're looking for. All right, depending on the judge, depending on the lawyers, depending on the precedents, there could be a lot of things that don't go your way. So, and a lot of people are not so much interested in going that far. But there are a few that have, and a few that have gone one way, and a few that have gone the other. So lawsuits can be beneficial, but you don't really know until it's all said and done.
A couple of things. One is, notice this is Franklin D. Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County, where's that?
Just north of Atlanta.
Yeah, this is a Georgia case that ended up, but that was a pretty significant case.
We're going to get to the high school part in just a few minutes. It's just some interesting little things that I discovered. I thought I'd share with you, and some trickery people have used. University of South Florida, 71 members on the cross-country team, and over half of them did not run. When they were asked, they didn't even know they were on the team. Marshall University, 3 players were added that didn't have to show up for practice, and they didn't have to travel. They just put 3 more people on the team. They were just, hey, you're on the tennis team. Cornell, 34 out of 49 women fencers took off their mask at practice because 15 of them were men. They're just trying to increase the female rosters. That's what their plan was. Texas A&M and Duke counted male practice players as females. The New York Times reports that from more than 20 colleges and universities, an analysis of all 345 NCAA institutions, that many are padding their rosters. They're counting male participants as women, and they're trimming the rosters of male teams. Again, 40 years have gone by, and they're still doing this stuff. And it's so hard, even now, it used to not be so hard to hide it, but now everything's on the computer. You know, you pull up like that. It used to be handwritten rosters. You know, they were hard to find, typed up. You could hide them. Now everything's online, and everything's saved, and sent out in emails. So it's like, I mean, I don't know what they're trying to run from. And now it brings us to the high schools.
Okay, let me pass these out, and I'll try to go through.
What she's passing out to you is what you got there. That's the...
It's a sample. This came from it's the actual gender equity manual from the Georgia Department of Education. It's real thick. I just tried to pull out the part that you can see. You want to pass them on around there. Thank you. Where you can see what they have to file each year that they have to send in to the Department of Education. And I'll just try to go over real quick from the first page. Then I'll send around the form where all the information is filled in. Okay, first of all, they have to designate a sport equity coordinator. They also have to have an annual notification to students, adopt published grievances procedures, and don't discriminate on the basis of gender. Okay, so we'll get to this whole site there. All right, so some of the things you're looking at. That first page is a sample of the gender equity policy that the schools have to come up with. I tried to find like college level on different things, but I guess it's something that's left up to the discrepancy of the school to come up with their own policy there of what they want to put in there to the effect of putting down more of the discrimination based on the gender in the elementary and secondary athletic programs. Also, and so that's just a policy per se. And so it's a sample of your non-discrimination notice. It's what your policy is about. The second sheet should be a sample of your grievance procedure.
These are all...
This comes from the Georgia Department of Education here. And the last printed, I guess the update is 2007 here. Is that second sheet grievance, sample grievance procedure? Okay. And it has, and I don't know, it just outlines like 7 things. The student or parent guardian must submit a complaint. The sports equity coordinator should take all reasonable steps. The coordinator also should render a decision in writing. A copy of each decision should be provided to the complainant within 5 calendar days. either certified mail or hand delivered. A complainant shall have the right to appeal each decision to the board within 35 calendar days. The board shall review all materials related to the matter and render a decision in writing no later than 30 calendar days. And then a copy of the decision shall be provided to the complainant within 5 calendar days of the date of the decision, either by certified mail or hand delivery. On the once we get there, though, too, we have where it'll show where they have to make the number. I'm sorry.
You can finish.
Okay, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Is this basically saying that if a student or a parent were to complain, they would have to go through the Georgia Equity?
Now this is school level here. So if it's at the, like I say, any school that's getting federal funds, it could be elementary school, it could be the middle school or high school, or any secondary school, according to what it's saying here. And they might come up with their own policy a little bit different from this, but this, like I say, came from the manual of the Georgia Department of Education. So, but remember it said that anybody could, even if you weren't part of that school or whatever, you could file that complaint. So that's what that is. And so every school, you have to have, it's required that you have an equity coordinator, sports coordinator, or they call it a state, well, school, somebody to represent that Title IX program. It has to be put in place, and you have to have somebody there.
What happened was Title IX is federal law, and after declaration.
And it was said that it's usually like the athletic director can be a Title I person, usually somebody that's school level that, well, according to what it says, that they're going to do their job because they don't want to lose it, for it's been the Title IX. Okay, then it shows, Exhibit 1 shows the actual grievance form that you fill out. And on the bottom, your alleged action by the school. So they have to report what actions they do take. Also, it's another part to it. So it has to be filled out and returned. It's the part in there about donations. And we didn't talk about booster.
No, we didn't
As
get there.
far as the booster clubs and things and all. We didn't touch on that. And it's because we were going to do the donations. And we have something on our questionnaire, though, a memory tester. But your donations, even through booster clubs or whatever and all, it still has to be the same, that if the booster club, whatever they come up with, it has to be approved still through the system. And say, for instance, if they are buying the uniforms for the girls, then maybe the next year, they might be for the boys. It doesn't have to be in the same year, but it still has to be in compliance with Title IX. This here is in the middle. The one I actually had that the coach that did it had his in a little bit better order, and you'll see when I pass around the filled out version what he has to do every year. But a survey has to be done, and one of the surveys is like in the beginning, and I guess they get an idea of how many students they have for as female-male ratio, what they're interested in, what sports, and then they kind of get an idea from that what the sports might be for that term. So if you would turn past the survey, that your next one should be the gender equity in sports. And this is getting to the point. This is what it has to be filed each year, okay? It should have school system compliance report on gender equity. Over there. It does not. It's attachment 1. Keep going. See? Oh, there it is. Sure is. Okay? And I'll pass it around. He has to fill this out each year. The system, who's the coordinator, the methods of, remember we was talking about the methods of how he notified all the students and stuff and all. And on his, you'll see he'll put like the daily newspaper, and I forgot what the other is, but we'll see in just a minute. And he has to sign off on this, and this has to be turned in each year, I think. By August, if I'm not mistaken, each year he has to do it. The next page is participation rate. If you'll see, it has all the sports down. This is for interscholastic sports. It has the number of participants, male and females, okay, in each sport that's there. That has to be filled out. Then the next page is page 42 there, the intramural sports. So if your school has intramural sports, the same thing, male and female, and he has to put down a percentage of each one of those. All right, the financial data, every expenditure there from the athletic administration, those coaching compensation, extended pay, other salaries, benefits, tutoring for athletes, purchase services, transportation, those 13 things we were talking about are on this sheet here.
Now, this is just financial data, what she's going over right now. That's just one part of everything that was on that previous screen. I mean, whoever your officer, your Title IX officer at the institution, it's a full-time job. I mean, it takes, you can't just, catch up there at the end of the school year and hope you're going to get all your information. This has to be taken care of all year long.
Okay. And you just think about, you have each sport to do. I know last year for the first time I was coaching track, and I didn't know, it was like, you got to get that report in, coach. You got to get it to me that how many females that you have on the track team and how many males are. And see, I didn't know. That just kind of went past me. And now I know better. So I have to get those numbers in to him. All right, then this equal opportunity data is on the next 2 pages. And it's like a questionnaire that he has to fill out. And one of the questions at the beginning is, does the selection of sports and level of competition at your school effectively accommodate the interest and ability of the members of both genders? And I guess that goes back to the survey that they have that you'll do. He does at the beginning to see how many are interested in what sport. And he has to go back, or he or she, I say he because the coach he's male. So that information there was some of the questions that he has to answer. Like number 4, are the boys and girls team provided comparable transportation? So he has to give accountability.
You just said something about number 1 there, selection of sports and levels of competition in your school effectively accommodate interest and abilities of
Presented sex.
So females.
It doesn't
but
matter.
It's not.
Until they tip the scales where they're almost even, until females are no longer the underrepresented sex, it doesn't really apply. And they're just going to have to sit and wait. Now, if it goes the other way in time, if women become men become the underrepresented sex, well, then the tables will turn. They might be able to get a soccer team. But at the rate we're going now, it's going to be another 100 years.
Also, and all the equal opportunity data is doing is asking all those questions to make sure the school is in compliance. And even at the end, it asks, do you believe your school system is currently providing equal opportunities for members of both genders in your athletic program? And to answer yes or no. But it's going back, covering all those things with equipment and the participation of each of those things there. All right, the complaint data should be the next one. He has to go down, and it has filed, pending, settled, or local level, appeal to state board, corrective order, corrective plan and implemented, of different natures of complaint. Now, the sheet I have that he filled out, he didn't have any, so he has a 0 in all those spots. But but just the complaints about unequal treatment based on gender. Remember, now these complaints come from anybody that feels like they feel that they're in violation of that Title IX. Yes, ma'am.
You may have answered this, but at what point does the school go under investigation?
Okay, I'll get to that under compliance, because there's a penalty for it, but they give you an opportunity to try to get in compliance. And if you'll bear with me, let me go through this, and then we'll get to that, and I'll answer that question. Because this next one has the school compliance report here for the system. And all this is repeating everything before, because remember we had intramural sports, and this is interscholastic sports. So on our intramural sports, he has not applicable because we don't. We just have the interscholastic sports. So it's going to take you through the same paperwork of that, and the only difference is one is going to have the intramural and one has the interscholastic. And while y'all looking at this to see the numbers and how he's filled everything out, I'll talk about the penalties for non-compliance here. And the State Board of Education has the authority under the law to impose the following penalties against the school if they are not in compliance. and they have a certain time frame. And they have a corrective plan. If the local school board doesn't come up to par to Title IX, and they give them within a year to come in compliance, but less than
Between 1
to 4
they give 'em
years.
at least 1 year, but no more than 4.
4 years to come into compliance. And then if they don't, once the corrective plan, they give them opportunity to come up with the corrective plans to get it in compliance. All right, then if not, it goes to the Certification Department of Community Affairs, and same thing, give them opportunity, and if they come into compliance, then nothing's done. If not, it moves on to, they prohibit postseason athletic play. And after 1 year of the following date, same thing with the State Board of Education, within 4 years there, they will not be able to participate in any of the sports, interscholastic postseason contests. That participation violation of such an order may result with the holding this, they will hold state funds from them. Okay? If they still don't come in compliance, then that's when it says it will withhold state funds. But each one, you still have the opportunity to come into compliance before it moves to the next thing, even to the point of withholding the state funds. Did that kind of answer your question? Okay.
My school is currently in Title IX. So as an athletic trainer, I'm having to log all my hours.
All right, I got some statistics, interesting little statistics. This is from the Atlanta Constitution on June 1st, 2000. It's at 20 years after Title IX was passed. 75% of local school district salary supplements for coaching goes to boys' sports. 95% of extended pay beyond regular school year goes to boys' sports as well. 64% of boys and 36% of girls play competitive sports, 38% if you count cheerleading. 86% of dollars derived from legislative grants over 5 years were directed at boys' sports. Less than half the Georgia schools offer volleyball, the third most popular sport for girls in the country in 2002, 92.8% in 2012. So from 2002 to 2012, it's up to 92.8% of the schools in Georgia now offer volleyball. That's great. The ratio of football players to coaches is 9-1, and softball is 12-1. 1972, when the law passed, high school participation in sports females was just under 300,000. Males was over 3.5 million. In 2005, female participation went up over 3 million, and males was almost at 4.5 million. That is a 940% increase right here. And I think it was like 31%, I think, for this. It's high schools. NCAA women's participation in 1972 was just under 30,000, and men's was 170,000. In 2005, women's participation went up to 166,000, men's up to 222,000. It's like a 19% increase right here. It's like 450% increase for women right here. So everything's moving in the right direction for equity, but we're still not quite there yet because, you know, let's just say it's split 50-50, which most schools aren't split down the middle, but that ain't nowhere near 50-50. Blame it on football, right? And those are our references. Now, we have
some true and false.
True, false questions to answer.
We call them Title IX memory testers.
Do you see in any cases, has anyone ever brought up the biological structure of the human body and as to support why men probably participate more in sports and things like that?
Testosterone. I don't know. Yeah. Did you get one? Did you get one? Whoops. Take a few minutes to answer these as best you can. I'll hand that out in a second. While you're doing that, I'm going to hand out a few of these major points to remember. We're going to go over the answers here in just a few minutes. This is not the answer. Yes.
And I think the
There is a
sheet, the little stack is still going around to show you the numbers, how to fill out that compliance form that the coordinator has to do.
on these major points and takeaways. This isn't everything. There's a mountain of information this tall, fills up a whole room, and there's no way we cover it all. Not today.
Okay, are we ready? All right.
Number one. True or false?
Number one. Title IX requires the school to cut teams for males if the school's female teams are underfunded. False. Good. And for the sake of time, these answers are in the book, at least the first 9. 2 of them we got from another sheet. So number 2, Title IX uses a quota system to force schools to increase participation ratio for female athletes. They use a quota system? True or false? False. All right. Because Title IX, it tells us that a school has 3 ways to demonstrate that it meets the requirements. And you remember what those 3 requirements were? Proportionality, good.
Expansion of opportunities, accommodation of interests.
3-prong test. Okay. All right. Number 3, males are not protected by Title IX, and this is for sports athletics here.
Males are not protected by Title IX. True. Males are not the in athletics. Men are not the underrepresented sex.
So that's, I was about to say, so that's an overall statement. It's not if you have a school and the males at that school are the underrepresented.
Title IX, that's it. And that's why we make sure we put.
You're going to be hard to find.
Not.
I don't think that you're going to find any place where there's ever been a supervised by a male.
But if the scales do tip the other way, in time, one day they may, then if men become the underrepresented sex, then, hey, that's the way it goes. It would, if they become the underrepresented sex. And they'd have to be the underrepresented sex for quite some time. They'd have to show there's a long history of it.
Okay, number 4, money and equipment coming into an athletic program from donations or booster clubs and reserved for a particular team do not count into the Title IX evaluation process. Okay, good. It's false. Okay. Number 5. I'll just explain that too. Because it does not matter the source of money, the Title I coordinator administrator is required to provide equal benefits. All right, number 5. Football and other sports purported to the revenue sports are not excluded from the requirements of Title IX. True. You want to look at it if you want to. That's number 5, right here. I mean, that's just if you do the ring. I'll just do the true or false, and if you want to just explain a little bit. Okay. All right, number 6. Excuse me. Did you want to explain a little bit number 5?
No, go ahead. Just read that.
Okay. Number 6. If a school has the same number of teams for its males and females, it automatically meets the need to provide equal opportunity to participate. False. Good.
Real quick. Say you have a girl who plays softball, basketball, and tennis. You get to count her 3 times? Why not? You're right. You don't. You can't. You only get. She plays 3 sports. So it is only one person.
So it's not the number of teams, it's the...
It's not the number of teams, it's the individuals playing and the opportunities provided.
Okay. Number 7, a college that grants financial aid to the athletes must provide funding in proportion to the number of males and females in the athletic program.
True.
True. All right. Number 8, if the teams in the males program typically have more full-time coaches than in the females program, or more assistant coaches than in the females program, it is likely that a Title IX violation exists. True. Because they have the right to the equal access to coaching also. Number 9, an athletic program must spend equal money on both its males and female programs in order to comply with Title IX. Good. False.
False. The school needs to provide equal benefits, not equal money.
And only if the school is getting financial aid, federal aid.
Like we said earlier, if you have a football team, that just blew at everything for the men for the whole year right there.
Okay, number 10. The Title IX require male athlete. Let me read that again. Title IX require male athletic opportunities. It should be to be cut. Good. Because it is not designed to create opportunity and equality and experience for men and women there.
It is not to cut sports. The idea is to add more sports for women or opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. Number 11. Predominantly male courses are a violation of Title IX. False. Okay.
Any questions?
Did everybody get a chance to look at that sheet with the numbers filled out?